Hello, 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 everyone. Happy Wednesday. How's everyone doing? Hey, Daniel. Hey, William. Hello, people in the background. Let's just get right to this. Well, we're waiting for people to filter in. So, interesting day. Hey, Christo. Uh, we had some after the live stream this morning. We had the jolts. Chicago PMI, which was absolutely horrible, 40.4, huge miss to the downside. That number was terrible. Job openings also surprise to the upside. Job quits roughly in line, but openings surprise to the upside. We then got the Dallas Fed Services Index, which was a miss to the downside. Not as bad as the manufacturing number, but again, contraction. Then we got skip to the loo. My darling Harker and Jefferson talking about the skip. It's not a pause, it's a skip. And that's where things got interesting. Fed watch tool, big pullback because we could be skipping June and seeing in July. What's going on? Good afternoon, Jacob. So who else is here? Hey, Paul. Yeah, the House will vote this evening to go on the debt deal. So we'll see that they're looking to proceed. It got out of it bypassed what was the term? It bypassed the debate rule, and so it's going to be set for full and final vote from the House this evening. What do we got tomorrow? So we got the skip, which the market sort of liked. It was a back and forth day, although down day again. And also, this was the last, I didn't mention it this morning, but last day of the month. So we'll see what repositioning we get for the rest of the week, being the 1st and 2nd of June. But what do we have tomorrow? ADP numbers minor, but then we have initial jobless claims and continuing jobless claims. Remember, jobless claim Thursday. So remember, the last time initial jobless claims was a beat. So let's see what happens with that. Then very key, we got S&P Global Manufacturing PMI final numbers 15 minutes after the cash open, but ISM Manufacturing 30 minutes after the cash open. That could potentially be market moving. So we have those numbers, and remember, non-farm payroll on Friday. We got Harker also speaking tomorrow. And for crude traders, we got the EIA numbers. Remember, because of the holiday on Monday, they were shifted to tomorrow. The S&P 500 map. Mega caps pretty much down except Tesla and Meta. Oil is pulling back. Sort of a pretty decent rotation into healthcare. A risk off kind of day. You see utilities and healthcare. Real estate risk off, and energy leading it lower, but some pullback in stuff like technology, but the technology over the last week still up big. 33% now only for the hike, and we have 66% for the pause. So big reversal from this morning. Now we have a pause, potential hike, cut. So we're back to that. So we shall see. We are still just under 2 weeks away. So 2 weeks, Wednesday, minus a few hours, we will know if it's going to be a hike or pause. I just think they put skip on the table. I don't think that's decided because they keep stressing new data. But we have more so that they are considering the skip. But using this term skip instead of just saying, hey, we're pausing, well, hey, we're still keeping the hikes in place. Hey, Sterling. So, where else do we sit? Fear and greed still in greed even with this pullback. By the way, remind me to look at Advanced Auto Parts because it was a huge drop off a big earnings miss today, and I'm not saying this for now, it will get interesting as a potential dividend play once there's some kind of bottoming pattern. All right? Because the dividend's getting up over 5%. I'm not saying we run out and buy it or anybody runs out and buys it because there is no bottoming pattern. But It's getting to that levels where once it does put in a bottom pattern, especially if it breaks a little more lower and breaks the critical support, it could get interesting. Salesforce, if somebody has the numbers for that, could you put it in? But I got an alert that it was a pretty big gap down after hours. So let me know on that if somebody could. Let's just jump to AAP right now. Here's what I'm looking at. Now, it is, because I like to throw out stuff that I'm watching longer term. You see, testing COVID lows, testing November 17 lows. Now, these can easily break. Remember, we got the close below 62.5, and now this was bad. But I'm not saying that's why too many people, oh, it's going to hold support, let me just rush it and buy it. No. 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 This could easily break. But what does interest me, I'm just putting up some levels that I did not do on this platform yet. I just want to see where the next things are. See, look, we have two clusters. Now, we could get a bottom formation around this area, but again, nothing yet. You don't want to just go in, oh, it's big down there, it's got to fill the gap. No, that would just be silly, and it doesn't have to fill the gap all the way. But what interests me, if we can look above my head, sorry, now you have to focus on my face, but you see P to E. Now, this is going to come down because you see the earnings, huge miss, huge miss. So this is going to go up again. But I want to see what this, once all the dust settles, where this sits tomorrow. That's why I'm also saying it's something I'm going to be watching. But look at that dividend yield, back above 5%. So I would love to see us break down to something like the 87.5 here on the longer term. You know, maybe $50 where we had prior support. That would even increase the yield more. Advanced Auto Parts is not going anywhere. You get a decent yield. So something to consider. Something to consider. Again, it's not rush in and buy it tomorrow. There'll be time. There'll be time. Especially if we start getting a rollover in the market. But I like to put things on people's radar screen. Beta adjusted charts? You mean the back adjusted? Which one? We have a bunch of, where were they? We had another chart. They've introduced a lot. I was playing with them for a while, and it was given the iffier signals. So I don't know at this point. Thank you. CRM earnings. Let me just jump to CRM. Salesforce. So now it's come back a bit. So before on here, by the way, we used to have the reverse harmonics. Last time somebody asked me to look at it, went beyond those key levels. So I switched this to forward harmonics. Going into earnings, you see 224.75. We came up today, 225. And then we had earnings, what were they? Adjusted EPS 169, estimated 161, revenue 825, 818. So it looks like a beat. But I'll have to see with guidance. I mean, we're gapping down slightly. Hey, product reviews. So, did not raise fiscal year 23 revenue guidance. So thank you. Thank you. Sterling answers my question. So they didn't guide up. All right, we'll get to some of these other requests. Now, crowd. Let's just do crowd. Thank you for all the information in here. Thank you, because I don't want to spend the time. Ooh, almost to that first level, but didn't quite get there. Huh. Oof. That's never a strong sign when you had a reversal pattern like that inverse head and shoulders and it did not get to the first target. Crowd was, where was it? You put this in here too. Earnings, adjusted EPS 57. Estimate 50, revenue 692, 6. So they did a beat too. They did a beat, but people do not like something there. I'd have to look into that more. Yeah, earnings down on car parts, usually resilient. And again, product reviews is talking to advanced auto parts, which is interesting because you'd think even if we're going into more of a recessionary time or a cutback time, people be doing more work on their cars. And we've had a shortage of some auto parts, but they took a hefty miss. So that is very interesting. Is the consumer pulling back already more than we see, and we're going to see that coming up, especially in following quarters. Thank you for that, all that information, everyone. I appreciate you being here. So, well, I was right technically with options 22. Asked me which I thought would be weaker. NASDAQ down 72 basis points. S&P down 73 versus 58. Russell is down the most right now, a $1.10 for basis points. So what we see, we had the little reversal pattern here, little double bottoms. This hit, the NASDAQ just missed the second target, but those were valid little reversal patterns. And then the NASDAQ dropping back down. So we did get some warning sign, at least that the sell from earlier was putting in at least a short-term bottom. We do have cycles still get to the top area, but that can wait for, again, June 1st tomorrow. We could get some repositioning. We could see a little bounce back move. We're going to have to watch those unemployment figures, especially with the skip on the table. So anything that leads to people thinking there's going to be more of that pause, aka skip, that could turn into a permanent pause, the market will probably bounce on. But we have to wait for that data tomorrow morning. If we continue with the pullback, especially with the NASDAQ, look, this is the first 2-day pullback since the beginning of May. Wow. Does this have longer to fall even with a reconnect with the rotation zone? Yes. And we are getting the potential rolling over and just barely out of overbought condition. So we start breaking below today's low, and look where we're closing right at the 4-hour rotation zone, and we're still in a clear path move. So the same targets, nothing's changed with the targets from this morning, 14.2 and then about 14,070. Back to the S&P. If we break below today's low, this goes into major support area about 14,160, 165. The Dow still, again, testing the 200 again and bouncing. So this 200 area is still holding. If that breaks, so it will get interesting. You can see a rollover in the rotation zone yesterday and a little follow through today. But everything's going to matter on not just Thursdays, but Friday's numbers. Also, the Russell finished the double and then collapsed. Retesting this very key area before bouncing. So, again, below 1740, 1723, then uh-oh. All right, Sterling with the crowd sees second quarter revenue 717 versus to 1727. So guidance, I'm just looking at this. Could you tell me if they got, I can't digest all those numbers. Could you tell me if they got in line or guided lower or better? Because it looks like they had to have guided lower with that gap. We'll get to VIX. Interesting enough, that 1835 we talked about this morning. Look how yesterday's high, today's high area. We did not break above that with fear with the sell-off. And it was a very minor sell-off. DAX, though, this is the lowest close since back at the 6th of April. So DAX finally breaking down. Really ugly that the little double is off the table, but really ugly lopsided head and shoulders, so I would not use that as targets, but it starts breaking below the next key level, which I had this 15,650 area. You're into a clear path move with targets of 15,5 roughly, and then 15,275. Notes, little bounce back to the 200, which is what I was watching for. Now going to be watching To the upside, 114.04 is very major resistance. And if we break today's low, we'll be watching for a retest of the low area. Dollar index looking like it's definitely trying to put in the top with rolling cycles over. So if you start breaking 103.40, then I'm watching really for that pullback 103.10 and especially maybe 102.80. Crude, finally, it bounced back rather strongly. You can see bounced back strongly and then rolled over again. And now looks like it's going to finish off the day. Possibly, we got 10 minutes left, but I'm watching relation to 67.80. We closed below there. I'm going to be continuing to watch the pullback even if we do bounce. So, crowd guidance in line to a little better. After less than perfect earnings outlook. All right, I'm going to have to look into this more. Thanks for posting all that information, Sterling. Again, helping the channel with the information. Gold, not much here, but if we break above now 1992, we'll watch for the next target of 2016. Watching though for a potential rollover play below today's low. Platinum, remember it triggered the double top back on the 24th when this is a textbook example, sideways correction, rotation zone catching up, and then the break lower. Coming in at the 995 area for the first target. Where else do we sit? Yen continuing to pull back, actually closing in the rotation zone. So I'm watching for more of a pullback in the yen along with the dollar. Euro trying to get some bounce move on. Longer term, I'm still watching for another rollover play. Short term, I'm going to see how we react in the rotation zone on a move higher. Pound moving higher. Next key target is 124.95. Pound does not have a great setup anything yet. Bitcoin still stuck between two signals. Tesla still holding the 200. Tried to fill the gap, bounced back up. So will it continue higher with Musk in Shanghai? Quite possibly. Nvidia got reached out to on Discord today, wanting to know my thoughts on Nvidia. I am now going to be watching over the next couple days for a secondary reaction. And this is the first pullback because we got a rising rotation zone. We're going to most likely, unless the market just goes really kaput, we should get a secondary reaction. Does not have to happen tomorrow. But I'm going to be watching the secondary reaction for a setup for a potentially more significant rollover play. So now we filled the first gap. Even if we start on the second gap, now critical support coming in tomorrow is like this 366.65 area. Even if we break below that, I'd be watching for a partial gap fill and then some kind of secondary reaction. Unless the market completely collapses, I'm not targeting from an analysis perspective a full gap fill right away. Generally, things react, get the bounce, and everybody's like, okay, the correction's over. And then I watch for the more significant rollover play. That's how I look to analyze this. Intel's headed up because, why is Intel? Because NVIDIA alluding to the rumor mill that Intel could be helping them make some of their advanced chips. And that's, you see the big move on Intel. So, that's what that was about. AMD, since we're on chips, Paul's asking for AMD. AMD also would be watching for a secondary bounce in this area. Oh, it could even go a little lower, about 116. Reconnect with the daily rotation zone. Then I'd be watching personally for the secondary bounce. I call that the secondary reaction. and we gauge to see what setups occur on the secondary reaction. So, same thing there. Even if it started partially filling the gap, unless the market falls apart, I would personally not be targeting a full gap fill right off the bat. You'll get a number of people who think they've missed this move and that it's a downright bargain. Where else do we sit? What do we have tomorrow morning again for earnings? We have Dollar General, so that'll be interesting. By the way, I didn't go over earnings for tomorrow. Dollar General will be interesting. Macy's from the low end and the mid to upper end, consumer, different things. Lower end being Dollar General, mid to upper being Macy's. Will be interesting to see how their earnings fare. So definitely gonna check on that even if I don't get to a pre-market throughout, after the open quiets down, because we got unemployment at 1 hour before, so that's going to take precedence. And Hormel from a pretty substantial manufacturer of food products, and see what their take on inflation is and whether they're still able to pass it on or whether it's going to start hitting their markets or their margins. And then after the close, we got Zscaler, Broadcom, and don't call the cops, Lululemon. So, pull up the 2-year micro yield on the weekly. And then click the back adjust. Yeah, it's a different adjustment for the contracts, and that does look like a double top. But this one, and I've been doing some preliminary testing. Now, this has not been like 10,000 yet, because I don't have 10,000 to go off yet in here, which is over what was tested before. I don't have enough data to say whether that's going to be a reliable double yet. I'm getting mixed signals on whether they are as reliable. Okay? So, keep that in mind, please. It does drastically change some things, though. It does drastically change some things. That's why I stopped using the charts for now. Normally the back adjusted charts, and I did all the testing on other platforms before. But I thought, hey, let's check it out on TradingView. But their back adjustments are really extreme. So I'm trying to figure some stuff out still with them, and I have not had time. Yeah, let me get to Google. I think William wanted Google. I'm just going to do G-O-O-G-L, William. Google still has a potential double top in play, sitting at the daily rotation zone. You start breaking below 122, you're looking at 119.86. And then the possible trigger of, you have a gap fill down here too, also, which would gap fill would be to 120.90. Daily close below 119.86 could lead to a bigger pullback, but it is the lower probability variety. So nothing's really changed. So far, it's a sideways correction. Now, for Roblox, big update today to finish off the month. If it breaks out higher, here's your key cluster, 44.90 with a minor level of 43.80, and you have a gap left behind. So that's what I'd be watching if you're watching for a breakout play. You have a gap magnet, but 43.80 I would not ignore. It's partway through there, and you now have a cluster right in front of the gap fill of 44.80, 44.90. So I'd at least, can't tell you what to do, but from my perspective, those would at least at a minimum be stop raises. And how else do I like to use these numbers? All right, like especially this upper end. Let's say I was going to do a call spread. Well, I know what my upper end of my spread would be. For the bottom end, I like to do something at or close to the money. But the upper end, if I'm looking, well, how should I structure it? For the call I'm going to sell, I like to do something around these cluster areas. So that would be roughly around the 45s. Just a little something for you to investigate on your own. But that's why those kind of levels help me if I was going to do an option play, how I'd look to structure it. AI earnings incoming. Well, let me know. UPST. I'm just trying to give out some information at times that things I've worked on over the years. UPST, let's see, using the reverse harmonics. Ooh, look at, again, if you don't believe, again, we don't hit every harmonic, but you have to admit, it's pretty uncanny how often they call significant highs or lows, which is why I use them. And what did this form? It formed a potential double top. Does that ever have to trigger? No. But there you go. There you go. Now, for the next levels, again, that does not have to trigger. It's still against the daily rotation zone. Let me check the weeklies closing in on the 50 area. If we break higher, because we got to analyze both sides of the market, because it's still in a bull trend, this is where I'd use the most recent reverse harmonics, which would give me 30.80, and I'd really be focusing on 31.61. Then you can use the forward harmonics coming from this low, because the most recent would be the reverse harmonics, and then this low would be key. And let's see what that looks like on the weekly. So see, look at that 31.61 would be the level I'd be really focused on should it break. You have a fair amount of selling pressure up here. But should it break, and then look at the next major level, 34.50 is at the end of this very key candle body swing high. And that's what I'm trying to help people understand, the thought process to doing some analysis so everyone can do it themselves. Or at least you can research stuff that I like to utilize and then decide if it can work with the way you analyze and trade markets. You're welcome, Paul. Looks like AI might have been a miss. After the gap down, back to key breakout support. But how can it be a miss? It's AI. Does anybody have the data on that yet, or is it still looking? Let's just see what the key levels are for the retracements. So I'd be watching for support 31.50 to about 33.50 as a first key level of support. All right, with that, we got some potential storms coming in here. I'm going to get the dogs out for a walk before potentially rain hits. We had thunder going off just before I started the live stream. So I'm going to call it a session for now. Thank you everyone for tuning in. And I shall see you all for Unemployment Thursday and ISM. ISM and Unemployment Thursday tomorrow. Bye for now.